Welcome to the Futures YouTube channel, a space for PhDs and postdocs at Johns Hopkins University to pick up tips and strategies that will help you navigate, discover, and design a fulfilling career path. In this video, we will go over some common resume mistakes that we all make while applying to jobs, and we will discuss strategies on how to fix them. So let's dive right in. Let's first really begin to understand what the big deal is with a resume anyway. So over the last few years of your education, you have acquired technical skills, right? Established important connections and collaborations, written important chapters and manuscripts, all while taking classes, won awards, and added value to your community. In other words, you have developed an expertise in the fields that you study and otherwise. All this will eventually manifest itself into an interview, a job offer, and designing a fulfilling career path or paths. A resume is only one tool in your toolbox that will help you along that path, but it sure is an important one. It's essentially a marketing document that captures your professional essence. It tells people who you are, what you do, and what you bring to the table. Well-crafted and strategically prepared resumes get you the visibility that you need. So let's go straight to understanding some of the very common mistakes we make even before we start thinking about preparing a resume. Mistake number one is forgetting to think about the job in question from an employer's point of view. By that I mean that there are certain aspects of the job search and recruiting that we need to be aware of before we begin. For starters, did you know how long it takes on average for someone to browse your resume before they decide if it's boring or worth reading further? It's 6 seconds, which means you will have to engage and interest your reader of the resume in simply a few seconds. Keeping that in mind, a second fundamental mistake is not tailoring your resume to the job description. In those first few seconds, the employer is trying to establish fit to the job. When that match or fit doesn't come through, then it's likely that they will not move forward with that resume, even though in reality if they met you, you probably could be the right candidate. So how do we address mistake number 1 and 2? The clue is in the job description itself. As a PhD, you're already very good at analyzing data or text and summarizing key results, right? So applying that same logic to the job description helps us identify what are the qualities and skills that the employer is looking for, what problem is the employer trying to solve by finding that right person, and how can you align yourself with the job description. So here's how I tease and dissect out a job before I strategize about crafting my resume. I begin by identifying what is important to the employer, key skills that they're looking for, such as technical know-how, communication, leadership, teamwork, etc. All this is already listed within the job description. Once I identify their needs, I prioritize in an order of importance. If the employer views teamwork as a key quality more than once and in more ways than one, then I know that teamwork is something that I should also specially highlight in my own resume. Understanding this will help me order the sections in my resume such that within a few seconds, the reader is able to gauge what I bring to the table. In addition, I use keywords found in the job description within my resume so that I am speaking the same language as the person who wrote the job description, thereby establishing a great fit for that job. Of course, keep in mind that while you lay out a game plan for coming across as a great candidate and having your resume catch the eye of an employer, you have to ensure that you're not rushing into mistake number 3, which is exaggerating your accomplishments on the one hand and underselling them on the other. Your resume has to tell a compelling story, but your story has to be true. Your story and your resume does not have to be perfect because there is no perfect resume or candidate. But your story does have to be authentic, interesting, and relevant to the job. A resume is a marketing tool, a concise snapshot of you and your personal brand. This is not a time to undersell your accomplishments. A key to writing a true and compelling story lies in the way you structure your sentence and convey your message. For example, rather than stating that you are studying the immunogenicity of naturally derived drug products, a more compelling way to say that is to state why what you did is meaningful. Study the immunogenicity of naturally derived drug products to ensure the safety and efficacy of life-saving therapies. That just became a more impactful sentence. Or say you've written a bunch of manuscripts or book chapters. Then rather than saying wrote book chapter or manuscripts, you would say authored 3 peer-reviewed manuscripts and 4 book chapters. As a bonus, by quantifying your accomplishments, you come across as not only outcome-driven, but you've showcased your awesome communication skills. A resume is a document full of words, and so this brings me to the next common mistake number 4, and that's using buzzwords rather than keywords. Nothing is more off-putting than a resume that rattles off a bunch of empty buzzwords such as hard worker, problem solver, go-getter, detail-oriented, strategic thinker, storyteller, ninja, etc. These are just empty words and empty promises that an employer will likely cringe at. Anyone can say these words, but a skilled candidate will never have to use them. This is because when you use keywords instead that are impactful action words such as improved, created, delivered, and discovered, and then provide evidence of how you did those things, then you've just taken your resume to the next level. For example, say the employer values problem solving. Instead of saying, I'm a problem solver and critical thinker, you provide an example of a time you solved a problem. For example, increase student participation in departmental journal clubs by 80% using social media outreach methods. This just sealed the deal on your ability to innovate and be outcome driven and solve a perceived problem of low participation in events that might be useful to the employer and the job at hand. At this stage, we have developed a pretty good formula to strategize about the resume. Once laid out, the resume hopefully does not become that intimidating a document. All that remains is making sure we aren't committing mistake number 5, and that is not proofreading and formatting your resume. Make sure you read your resume over to detect any mistakes and have a couple of other folk go over it as well. As for the format, keep it simple. That means no fancy fonts, no fancy templates, and in the US, no need for photographs. Keep it clear, crisp, and easy to read. So that's it. I hope by outlining these 5 common mistakes and ways to fix them have helped you reframe the way you look at a resume. A resume is just one tool to use along this journey to discover a job and a career that you want. Stay tuned for even more tips and tricks, and subscribe to view recorded and more in-depth Zoom content from our regular programming around career-related topics. Thanks, and see you next time.